Bride discovers everything at the last minute. Her revenge on the wedding day was unforgettable. At the altar, she discovers her fiancé's betrayal. He only wanted her for her fortune, and the wedding was part of a cruel plan. But instead of crying, she decides to do something no one ever imagined. Her revenge on the big day will mark everyone forever. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us what city you're watching from. We continue. I promise this will be the best story you'll ever hear in your life. The mirror reflected a radiant bride. Olivia adjusted her veil one last time, her fingers trembling slightly as she smoothed the silk fabric. The dress she had chosen with such care embraced her body like a promise of happiness, each hand-embroidered pearl telling a story of dreams that would finally come true. In a few hours, she would be Mrs. Marcus Scott, wife of the man who had won her heart with sweet words and promises of a perfect future. The wedding morning had started early at the Anderson family estate, a property that had belonged to the family for 3 generations. Olivia's father, a respected businessman in the agricultural industry, had insisted that the ceremony take place there, among the gardens her late mother had loved so much. It was a perfect setting for the beginning of a new life, surrounded by the lush nature of the Georgia countryside and the affection of those who mattered most. Jessica, Olivia's younger sister, entered the room holding a bouquet of white roses and lilies. Her eyes sparkled with emotion, but there was something in her countenance that Olivia couldn't completely decipher. Perhaps it was just the natural nervousness of someone witnessing such an important moment in the family. "You look beautiful, Liv," Jessica murmured, adjusting a rebellious strand that had escaped from the elaborate hairstyle. "Marcus is a lucky man." Olivia smiled, feeling her heart race at the thought of her fiancé. Marcus had entered her life 2 years ago, when she was still trying to recover from a painful relationship that had ended abruptly. He appeared like a prince charming, with his confident smile and unique ability to make her laugh even on the most difficult days. He was a successful lawyer, or at least that's what he claimed, and had a charming way of telling stories about his cases and business trips. "I can't believe the day has arrived," Olivia confessed, gently touching the pearl necklace that had belonged to her grandmother. "Sometimes it feels like a dream." Jessica hesitated for a moment, as if wanting to say something important, but ended up just smiling and kissing her sister's forehead. "You deserve all the happiness in the world," she said sincerely, although her voice carried a nuance that Olivia couldn't identify. The sound of male voices echoed down the hallway, causing both to head to the window. Outside, guests were beginning to arrive, and among them was Marcus, animatedly conversing with some close friends near the entrance of the improvised chapel in the garden. He looked elegant in his black tuxedo, his hair perfectly combed, and his smile radiated the confidence that had always attracted her. Olivia observed him with love, imagining what it would be like to wake up beside him every day, build a family, perhaps expand her father's business with the help of someone who understood corporate law. Marcus had always shown genuine interest in the Anderson family's enterprises, asking intelligent questions about contracts, partnerships, and investments. It was comforting to know she would marry someone who not only loved her, but also understood and respected the family legacy. "I need to go downstairs to check on the final details," Jessica announced. "Dad is nervous, trying to coordinate everything himself. Will you be okay here?" Olivia nodded affirmatively, wanting a few minutes of solitude to absorb the magnitude of the moment. After her sister's departure, she returned to the mirror, observing every detail of her appearance. The dress had been a careful choice, inspired by the model her mother had worn at her own wedding, but with modern touches that reflected her personality. Her thoughts flew to her mother, who had passed away 5 years ago, victim of a prolonged illness. How she wished she could be present on this special day, offering wise advice and sharing the joy of seeing her daughter find true love. Olivia knew her mother would have adored Marcus, especially his kindness toward her father and his dedication to learning the family history. The phone vibrated on the vanity, a message from her best friend wishing her happiness. Olivia smiled, remembering how Marcus had won not only her heart, but also the approval of all the important people in her life. He had the gift of making everyone feel special, remembering personal details and always asking about each person's well-being. A gentle breeze entered through the half-open window, carrying the scent of jasmine blooming in the garden. It was the same perfume her mother used to wear, and Olivia interpreted this as a sign that she would be present in spirit during the ceremony. She closed her eyes and breathed deeply, allowing tranquility to take control of her nerves. The sound of hurried footsteps in the hallway made her open her eyes. It was Mrs. Caroline, the housekeeper who had cared for the family for decades, bringing a tray with tea and cookies. "To calm your nerves," she explained with a maternal smile. "Your mother always said that an empty stomach and a racing heart don't mix well." Olivia gratefully accepted the cup, feeling the warmth of the porcelain between her hands. Mrs. Caroline had been like a second mother to her and Jessica after their mother's passing, and her presence always brought comfort in the most important moments. "Mrs. Caroline," Olivia began, "do you think Mom would approve of my choice?" The older woman smiled tenderly, arranging an invisible pleat in the bride's dress. "Your mother always said we recognize true love by the peace it brings to the heart. If you feel that peace, then she would certainly approve." That was exactly what Olivia felt beside Marcus: peace. Even in moments of greatest stress, his presence had the power to calm her, to make her feel that everything would be all right. He was her safe harbor, her companion for all moments, good or bad. Mrs. Caroline discreetly withdrew, leaving Olivia alone with her thoughts once more. The bride finished her tea slowly, savoring the last moments of being single. Soon, she would walk down the aisle formed by rose petals toward the man who had promised to love her forever. Outside, the music began to play, indicating that the ceremony was about to begin. Olivia stood up, checked her appearance one last time in the mirror, and headed toward the door. Her heart was beating rapidly, but it was a heartbeat of joy and expectation, not of fear. When she opened the door, she found her father waiting for her in the hallway, elegant in his navy blue tuxedo. His eyes filled with tears upon seeing her, and he extended his arm for her to lean on. "Are you ready, my daughter?" Olivia smiled radiantly, adjusting the bouquet in her hands. "I've never been more ready for anything in my life, Dad." Carefully descending the stairs to avoid tripping on her dress, Olivia felt a wave of emotion upon hearing the murmur of guests awaiting her. The soft music echoed through the halls of the house, creating a magical atmosphere that made her feel as if she were living a fairy tale. Her father walked beside her, proud and emotional, whispering words of encouragement as they approached the garden where the ceremony would take place. But something unexpected made her stop. A conversation coming from her father's office with the door slightly ajar caught her attention. She immediately recognized the deep, confident voice of Marcus, mixed with the laughter of his closest friends. Naturally, she imagined they were just talking about trivial matters before the ceremony, perhaps sharing nervousness or making typical best men jokes. "Dad, I need to get my spare bouquet upstairs," she lied, feeling an inexplicable curiosity. "Can you wait for me for a minute?" Her father nodded understandingly, accustomed to a bride's last-minute preparations. Olivia climbed a few steps, but then discreetly approached the office door, driven by an intuition she couldn't explain. The words she heard made her world crumble in seconds. "Man, you're a genius," said a voice she recognized as Robert's, Marcus's best man. "Marrying the Andersons' daughter and getting direct access to the family business. It's the perfect con." Marcus's laughter echoed through the room like a dagger to Olivia's heart. "The old man completely trusts me. He's already treating me like a son, giving me access to privileged information about contracts and partnerships. In 6 months, I'll have power of attorney to sign important documents." "And then what?" asked another voice, which Olivia identified as Charles, another close friend of the groom. "Then it's just a matter of time," Marcus replied, with a coldness she had never heard in his voice. "A well-planned divorce will guarantee me a good slice of the inheritance. Olivia is so in love that she doesn't suspect a thing. She'll sign anything I ask, as long as I keep whispering sweet words in her ear." The bouquet fell from Olivia's hands, the flowers scattering across the wooden floor with a dull thud that fortunately wasn't heard by the men in the office. Her legs trembled, and she had to lean against the wall to avoid fainting. The words continued to reach her like poisoned arrows. "But you need to be careful," warned Robert. "If she finds out before it's time—" "She won't find out," Marcus interrupted arrogantly. "Olivia is completely naive. She believes everything I say like a lamb following the shepherd. She thinks I'm a successful lawyer when in fact I'm nearly bankrupt because of gambling debts. This marriage is my salvation." Charles laughed maliciously. "And the worst part is that she's really in love with you. I've seen the way she looks at you. The poor thing has no idea she's being used." "That's exactly why the plan will work," replied Marcus. "Women in love are predictable. They only see what they want to see. Olivia has built a romantic fantasy around me, and I just feed that fantasy with the right words at the right time." Olivia had to cover her mouth with her hands to stifle a sob. The pain she felt went beyond betrayal. It was a deep humiliation that struck at her dignity and judgment. How had she been so blind? How had she not noticed the signs? "And what if she wants a prenuptial agreement?" questioned Robert. Marcus laughed out loud. "I've already taken care of that. I convinced her that prenuptial agreements are for couples who don't trust each other. I said our love was too pure for that kind of precaution. She melted completely and agreed immediately." The conversation continued, but Olivia could no longer process the words. Her mind was in turmoil, processing the magnitude of the betrayal. It wasn't just the fact that he didn't love her, but the calculated and cruel way he had orchestrated everything. He knew her weak points, her insecurities, and had used each one against her. With mechanical movements, she moved away from the door and climbed the stairs, stumbling. She entered her room and went to the mirror, observing the radiant bride she had been minutes before. Now she saw only a deceived woman, a victim of a meticulous plan that had lasted 2 years. Jessica appeared at the door, concerned. "Liv, what happened? You're pale." Olivia looked at her sister, feeling an impulse to tell everything, to ask for help, to immediately cancel the ceremony. But then something changed in her eyes. A cold, calculated determination replaced the initial despair. "It's nothing, Jess." "Just nerves," she lied, forcing a smile. "Can you ask Dad to give me 5 more minutes? I need to touch up my makeup." Jessica hesitated, clearly sensing that something was wrong, but ended up nodding and leaving the room. Alone again, Olivia looked at herself in the mirror with a new perspective. Marcus thought she was naive, predictable, a defenseless lamb. He was about to discover how wrong he was. She gathered the flowers scattered on the floor, reassembled the bouquet, and adjusted her posture. If Marcus wanted to play a manipulation game, she could play too. The difference was that he had completely underestimated whom he was dealing with. Olivia was the daughter of a shrewd businessman who had built an empire from nothing. She had grown up listening to conversations about business, strategies, and the importance of always being one step ahead of the competition. Marcus wasn't the first man to try to take advantage of the Anderson family fortune, but he would certainly be the last to get away unscathed. She descended the stairs with renewed elegance, each step calculated and determined. Her father was waiting, and she leaned on his arm with the same grace as before, but now with a completely different purpose. "Sorry for the delay, Dad. Now I'm ready." As they walked toward the garden, Olivia was already mentally working out her next move. She wouldn't cancel the wedding. That would be obvious, predictable. Instead, she would give Marcus exactly what he wanted: total access to the family's trust. But he would discover too late that he had severely underestimated the woman he chose to play with. Olivia Anderson was not a victim. She was a strategist in training, and her revenge would be as meticulous as his plan had been cruel. The garden opened before her, filled with smiling and expectant guests. Marcus was at the altar, with his charming smile and eyes that pretended eternal love. He nodded discreetly to her, and Olivia responded with a radiant smile that perfectly hid the storm forming in her heart. The ceremony proceeded like a dream for the guests, but like a lucid nightmare for Olivia. She pronounced her vows with a theatrical perfection that impressed even herself, each word leaving her lips as if truly coming from the heart. Marcus, beside her, played the role of the enamored groom with the same mastery, whispering promises that she now knew were completely empty. When the minister declared them husband and wife, the kiss that sealed the union was accompanied by the emotional applause of those present. Olivia felt Marcus's cold lips against hers and had to fight against the impulse to pull away. Instead, she smiled radiantly at the audience, playing the role of the happiest bride in the world. The wedding. Reception was a spectacle of elegance. The tables were decorated with white and gold flowers, the music was perfect, and dinner had been prepared by the best chef in the region. Olivia circulated among the guests with grace, receiving congratulations and good wishes, while her mind worked incessantly on the next steps of her strategy. During dinner, she observed Marcus interacting with her father. She saw how he asked seemingly casual questions about the business, how he showed interest in the company's future projects, how he offered to help with legal matters. Each gesture confirmed what she had heard in the office, but now she was prepared to use this information to her advantage. "My son-in-law has an excellent head for business," her father commented proudly during his speech. "I'm sure he'll be a valuable addition to our family, both personally and professionally." Marcus smiled modestly, giving the acceptance speech that touched the hearts of all present. He talked about true love, about finding his soulmate, about the wonderful plans he had for the future alongside Olivia. Every word was a well-crafted lie, and Olivia applauded enthusiastically, knowing that soon he would pay for each deception. After the party, when they finally were alone in the room that had been prepared for the wedding night, Marcus approached her with the same charming smile as always. "It was a perfect day, my love," he said, trying to embrace her. "Now we're truly a family." Olivia allowed the embrace, but her body was tense. "Yes, it was wonderful," she replied, forcing enthusiasm in her voice. "And Dad was so happy to officially welcome you into the family. He's already talking about giving you more responsibilities in the company." Marcus's eyes shone with an eagerness he tried to disguise as joy. "It would be an honor to work alongside your father. He built something truly impressive." During their honeymoon in Santorini, Olivia began the first phase of her plan. She pretended to be the submissive and enamored wife that Marcus expected, agreeing with his suggestions, praising his ideas, and especially demonstrating blind trust in his judgment. She knew she needed to feed his ego, make him feel in total control of the situation. "Marcus, dear," she said during a romantic dinner overlooking the sea, "Dad called me today. He wants to talk to you about taking on some power of attorney for the company when we return. He said he needs someone trustworthy to handle some international contracts." The smile that formed on Marcus's face was one of pure satisfaction. "Of course, love. It will be a pleasure to help the family." Olivia smiled sweetly, knowing she had just planted the first seed of her revenge. While he believed he was manipulating the situation, she was leading him exactly where she wanted. Back in the United States, Olivia intensified her performance. She showed interest in learning about the family business, asking Marcus to explain contracts and legal decisions. He, inflated by a sense of intellectual superiority, explained everything in detail, not realizing that she was absorbing each piece of information, each strategy, each loophole that he himself revealed. "You're so intelligent," she would sigh, looking at him with feigned admiration. "I would never understand these things without you." Marcus delighted in the compliments, becoming increasingly careless with his real intentions. During a dinner with friends, Olivia heard him subtly boasting about his privileged access to the Anderson family business. Meanwhile, secretly, she began her own investigation. She discreetly hired a private investigator, a retired ex-police officer recommended by a family friend, to discover everything about Marcus's past. What she found exceeded even her worst expectations. Marcus was not just an opportunist, he was a true specialist in matrimonial cons. He had attempted the same scheme with at least 3 other women from wealthy families in the last 5 years. In all cases, he had been discovered before being able to fully execute his plans, but had always managed to escape with some money or benefit. Even more alarming was the discovery of his debts. He owed significant amounts to loan sharks due to his gambling addiction, had overdue loans with banks, and his financial situation was desperate. The marriage to Olivia wasn't just an opportunistic con, it was literally a matter of survival for him. "Interesting," murmured Olivia, examining the reports in her private office. "Very interesting." She also discovered that Robert and Charles, the friends who had participated in the conversation on the wedding day, were accomplices in some of Marcus's previous schemes. They formed a kind of team where each had a specific function in executing the cons. With this information in hand, Olivia began the second phase of her plan. She began to discreetly monitor all of Marcus's financial movements, installing tracking software on his electronic devices when he wasn't looking. She discovered secret accounts, communications with loan sharks, and even evidence that he was planning to transfer money from the company to offshore accounts. As soon as he got the necessary power of attorney. One day during lunch, Marcus casually mentioned that he had met with Robert and Charles for business. "What kind of business, dear?" Olivia asked innocently. "Oh, just some legal consulting. They have a small company and want some advice," he lied without hesitation. Olivia smiled sweetly, knowing that in reality they were planning the next steps of the con, but she was always one step ahead, anticipating each move. It was then that she decided to accelerate the process. Instead of waiting for Marcus to take the initiative, she herself began to suggest that he take on more responsibilities in the company. "Dad is so tired lately," she commented during dinner. "I think we need someone younger and more dynamic to help with important decisions. You wouldn't mind taking on some power of attorney, would you?" Marcus's eyes almost glowed with excitement, but he contained himself, feigning reluctance. "I don't know, love. It's a big responsibility. What if I make a mistake?" "Nonsense," insisted Olivia. "You're the smartest man I know. Besides, trust is the foundation of marriage, isn't it?" Marcus agreed, trying to hide his satisfaction in getting exactly what he wanted so easily. He didn't imagine he was walking directly into a carefully constructed trap set by his own wife. 3 months. After the wedding, Olivia had become a master in the art of dissimulation. Each morning she woke up next to the man who had betrayed her in the cruelest way possible, but managed to smile and show affection as if nothing had changed. It was an Oscar-worthy performance, sustained by the thirst for justice that burned in her chest. Marcus, completely confident in his dominion over the situation, had become careless. The powers of attorney were already in his hands. He had complete access to the company's financial systems and firmly believed that Olivia was just a docile tool in his plans. His phone conversations with Robert and Charles had become more open, and he frequently discussed the next steps of his scheme without worrying about lowering his voice. It was during one of these conversations that Olivia heard the information she needed to deliver the final blow. "The transfer will be made tomorrow," Marcus said on the phone, believing his wife was in the garden. $2 million to the account in the Bahamas, as planned. "After that, it's just a matter of weeks until I start the divorce process." Robert laughed on the other end of the line, "and she won't even suspect until it's too late." Exactly. Olivia will wake up one day and discover that half of the family, Fortune, has disappeared, and her husband too, replied Marcus with a cruelty that still managed to shock her. Olivia closed her eyes, breathing deeply. The time had come. That night, during dinner, she was especially affectionate and attentive. She served Marcus's favorite wine, prepared his favorite dessert, and animatedly discussed plans for the weekend. He relaxed completely, interpreting her dedication as proof of his own manipulative ability. "Darling," she said with a sweet smile, "Dad asked me to tell you that he needs your signature on some documents early tomorrow. They're important international contracts." Marcus nodded, barely able to hide his satisfaction. He thought the moment had finally arrived to execute his master plan, but in reality, he was walking directly into the trap that Olivia had prepared with surgical precision. Next morning, Marcus woke up animated and confident. He put on his best suit, fixed his hair with extra care, and headed to the Anderson Company office with the posture of a man about to conquer the world. What he didn't know was that Olivia had spent the entire night coordinating the final details of her revenge. The private investigator was strategically positioned with cameras and recording equipment. The family accountant, a loyal man who had known Olivia since childhood, was prepared to document each suspicious movement. And most importantly, the relevant authorities had already been discreetly alerted about the fraudulent activities that were about to take place. Marcus entered his father-in-law's office with his most charming smile. "Good morning, Mr. Edward. Olivia told me you need some signatures." Edward Anderson, who had been informed by Olivia about the entire situation the night before, managed to maintain his composure despite the anger he felt. "Yes, Marcus, they are very important documents. I hope you're sure you understand the responsibility you're assuming." "Of course, sir, you can trust me," replied Marcus, already extending his hand to take the pen. But the documents he signed weren't the international contracts he expected. Instead, they were detailed confessions of fraud, illegal transfers, and embezzlement, skillfully disguised as commercial documents. Each signature he gave was more evidence against himself, another piece of the puzzle that Olivia had assembled with precision. When Marcus tried to access the system to make the fraudulent transfers, he discovered that his passwords had been changed. Confused, he called Olivia. "Love, I'm having problems accessing the system. Do you know if your father changed anything?" Olivia, who had been waiting for this call, responded with a worried voice. "How strange, dear. Let me call the IT department and check." But instead of calling IT, she activated the second phase of her trap. The recordings of Marcus's conversations with Robert and Charles were simultaneously delivered to the authorities and the company's board of directors. The evidence of his attempted fraud was presented to the district attorney, and the proof of his previous cons was forwarded to the families who had been his victims in the past. Within hours, Marcus's carefully constructed life completely collapsed. The police arrived at the office with search and seizure warrants. Robert and Charles were arrested simultaneously in their respective homes, and Marcus found himself surrounded by investigators, prosecutors, and lawyers, all armed with irrefutable evidence of his crimes. "This is a mistake," he shouted, trying to maintain the facade of innocence. "I never did anything wrong." But the evidence was overwhelming. The recordings, the signed documents, the attempted transfers, everything was documented with legal precision. There was no way to deny it, no way to escape. It was then that Olivia appeared in the office, no longer as the submissive and enamored wife, but as the strong and intelligent woman she truly was. Marcus looked at her with a mixture of shock and late understanding. "You," he murmured, finally comprehending the magnitude of his own defeat. "What, Marcus?" asked Olivia with impressive calmness. "I discovered what kind of man you really are. I refused to be a passive victim of your cruel plans, or I simply revealed myself to be more intelligent than you ever imagined." Marcus tried one last card, appealing to the feelings he believed she still had for him. "Olivia, you don't understand. I really love you. This was all a misunderstanding." She smiled coldly. "Love? You call it love to use someone as an object for your financial schemes? You call it love to coldly plan to destroy the life of a person who trusts you? Marcus, you don't even know what that word means." The handcuffs were placed on his wrists as he was still trying to process how he had been completely outplayed, at his own game. The last image he had of Olivia was of her beside her father, serene and victorious, watching him being taken away by the police. In the months that followed, the trial became a widely reported case in the media. The evidence presented by Olivia and her team was so solid that there was no possibility of defense. Marcus was convicted of fraud, attempted embezzlement, and a series of other crimes related to his previous schemes. Robert and Charles also received significant sentences, and the entire scheme was completely dismantled. The families who had been previous victims finally obtained justice, and several other women who could have been future targets were spared the same fate. For Olivia, the victory brought a complex feeling of relief and personal growth. She had discovered an inner strength she didn't know she possessed, a capacity for strategy and determination that surprised her. But most importantly, She had learned to trust her own judgment again and to never allow anyone to underestimate her again. A year after the trial, Olivia was in her office when Jessica entered with a mischievous smile. "Liv, there's a man downstairs wanting to speak with you. Says he's a journalist and wants to interview the woman who exposed the country's biggest matrimonial con artist." Olivia laughed, shaking her head. "Tell him I don't give interviews. My revenge was already complete. I don't need more publicity." But when she went down to dismiss the journalist personally, she found herself face to face with a man with gentle eyes and a sincere smile who greeted her with genuine respect. "Ms. Anderson, forgive me for bothering you. I'm David Mitchell from the state newspaper. I didn't come here for a sensationalist interview. Actually, I came to thank you." Olivia frowned, confused. "Thank me?" "My sister was one of Marcus Scott's previous victims. Thanks to your courage. In exposing him, she finally managed to recover the money he stole from her and find peace of mind. You saved not only your own life, but that of many other women." At that moment, Olivia realized that her journey had been about much more than personal revenge. It had been about justice, about protecting other people, and about discovering her own strength. 6 months later, David and Olivia married in a simple and intimate ceremony, surrounded only by family and closest friends. This time there were no grand parties or extravagant celebrations. What there was genuine love, true trust, and the certainty that both had found in themselves and in each other exactly what they were looking for. On their honeymoon, as they walked along the beach at sunset, David held Olivia's hand and said, "You know you're the bravest woman I've ever met, don't you?" Olivia smiled, feeling for the first time in a long time a true peace. "It wasn't courage, David. It was just discovering who I really am." The end. Dear listeners, we hope that Olivia's story and her impressive journey of self-discovery have touched your hearts. This narrative shows us that true strength isn't in revenge, but in the ability to transform pain into wisdom and betrayal into personal growth. To follow more exciting stories like this that explore the complexity of human relationships and the inner strength we all possess, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and activate the notification bell. Leave a like if this story inspired you in some way, and share in the comments which part moved you the most. Every day we bring unique narratives that celebrate the human capacity to overcome adversity and find true happiness. Your interactions and comments motivate us to continue creating content that touches your souls. Don't miss our upcoming releases.